here's your host, Alex Garrett.
All right, well, inside this podcast of the Alex Garrett Podcast Network, a little bit of a different Father's Day. It was an emotional one all day long. It was a bit of a roller coaster day. But I am sticking to one plan I had to honor my dad, John Garrett, who passed on April 15th. And that is to play his own words. Now, keep in mind, he didn't really want to do a podcast, okay? He wasn't one to go on the record, if you will. But with the invention of the voice memo and the voice note on the iPhone, I kind of wanted to get some of his story on tape. And so August of 2022, that's what I did. And I got him talking about his trips to Japan. See, when I eulogized my dad in May, I said he was his own person. And I figured, what a way to show how he was his own person by playing for you not only his voice that we all knew for the last 31 years and beyond, but also that he was his own person, that he had his own travels. And so he told me about his trips to Japan and elsewhere, and it went on for about 9 minutes or so. And I want to start there with a little bit of stories from John Garrett.
Well, when I was first going there, I was trying to find out how to get to a Rotary meeting. And of course, I didn't speak any Japanese, they didn't speak any English, so I remember driving through this town. I had to get to a place by 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was running short. I think it was a fire, but I showed this guy the book of the different, it was the Rotary directory of all the clubs. I showed them the name, and they sort of indicated, so I finally got there, but I was late. But I went in there, and I caught a couple of guys before, as they were leaving. And the Japanese, being as they are, very gracious, they had a special dinner for me that night.
Oh.
That had geishas serving them and everything, and they were talking about the difference between American men and Japanese men. So anyway, I stayed over. Oh, and then they had me go into one of their baths before eating. It was so hot, because to them it was like, jumping in a. So I took this stuff. So they saw my golf clubs, and they, of course, they knew a lot of golfing. So they took me out the next day to golf. And this golf course was up. I never was on a golf course like that before. It was up on top of the hills. And when you were up there, instead of being in the valleys,
right,
the golf course was up on top of the hills. And it was a different experience because you could look down the valleys, or you had the clouds that weren't that. But that was a nice. And of course, my hope was that I would play decently. Which when I was golfing, I was doing a lot of golfing. Well, although I was past my golfing time, I was still doing it. But we got to this one hole where there were 4 people or so. There were 3 or 4 of them with me. And it was a par 3 of it. It was down in the valley, the green. And I was hoping that I wouldn't shank it or something, put it into the... Oh. Well, I hit it onto the green about 10 or 15 feet, or so that's maybe. But it was a very... Oh, and then I went on and went to another town. Okay. They had the overseas, and this was an interesting thing. Because of the lack of space there, with all these people, 120 million lived, I don't know what it is now.
Okay.
Everything was, space was at a premium. But their hot water system, instead of having these tanks of hot water,
right,
they took the water, and when you wanted a hot bath, they ran the ordinary water through a coil. The coil was totally heated. And it went in cold in one end, and this coil is about this long, and it came out the other end as hot as can be. And that's how they conserved water and not only that, but they didn't use up a lot of.
Did you do the train system there? Or did you do the trains over there too? Or?
Yeah, that was a really interesting one.
Okay.
I took a couple of trains, but the first was through Tokyo. I saw the map. I saw my book because I was always reading. There was a train that went around Tokyo. It took about an hour. You know, you didn't see a lot, but I was never so proud of myself and being able to communicate. So I go into this station, a huge station, with a whole bunch of different tracks going different. And I showed this guy this book with a name, some sort of book that I had that online. But within 5 minutes of walking into this big station, I was on the train, the right train. Because I went to the right thing, got to the right, it was all, everything was in Japanese. There was no, so that made me feel happy that, you know, that happened. But then I was going out to another rotary meeting. But the train I was going to, taking, didn't go to this town. So I got off and I was wondering, well, how am I going to get in? Some guy comes by in a car and picks me up and takes me there. And when it was over, one of the guys, so I got there halfway through the meeting or whatever it was, and then when it was over, one of the guys, took me to one of their pagodas. And I know it's funny, but then, you ever heard of the bullet train?
Yeah, I've heard of the bullet train.
Yeah. So, he dropped me off at a station to go back to Tokyo or wherever it was. And I was getting the local. And I'm standing in the station, this bullet train comes zipping through at 120, 50 miles an hour. It was just a different experience. But that was the, so I made as much as I could out of my travels as I could, you know, driving on my own. I didn't have anybody to tell you, I don't want to go there, or let's not do that, or so that was but there was one other thing I was going to say about connection with that. Oh, right. When after I was going to go travel, you know, I was going to drive a car. And of course, all the signs are in Japanese.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I go to this, and of course, the steering wheel is just like in England, it's on the other side of the road. You got to drive on the left side of the road. And then this guy at the rental agency, are you going to rent this car? And yeah, he's a brave guy.
Why?
Because he figured I didn't have any hope of understanding anything. Brave, like, when you going to drive this car over here, you think. But I got stopped again. Coming back into the Japanese over there. They cleaned up the countryside. But there was no loose wrappers or anything. Because they had people out. They had grass along the side of the freeways or whatever you call them. And they were out there, people making sure that all this stuff was as clean as could be. But I guess I was speeding, so somebody stopped me. So I kept saying, oh, no, blah, blah, so they couldn't let me go. But that was...
Didn't you go to the Colosseum? I thought you went to Rome.
Oh, I was in Rome, yeah. That was my first... When I went to Italy, of course, I had no idea what... I got driven down from Switzerland down to northern Europe, to Genoa, where Christopher Columbus was from. That was stopped at Pisa to see the Leaning Tower, which was not open to people going into it then, but I saw it anyway. And went to Rome, and I had no idea, because I didn't have a map or anything. I had no idea where to go. When I was driving along, what did I see in the middle front of me? was the Coliseum. So I knew that once I saw the Coliseum, I had some markings that I could make. But I met a guy there who was also, I went to there on this convention again in Rome. And there was another guy visiting who had a map, and I had a car, so I drove him back to the center of where it was. And I remember going near the Vatican. What a huge place that. What do they call it? St. Peter's Square or something?
Yeah, that's where the Vatican is.
Huge thing. I never went on to it, but you could stand beside it. It was as big as a football field.
And while I'm at it, a huge thank you to my dad, Vic, who's been with us since, the 1998, 1999. And we've had a family here in Jamaica, Queens. And he's held my mom and I together the last couple months alone. And of course, the last many years, he's been the stable force of our family. And you'll get to hear from him as well as I replay a little bit of our conversation on his show, Destinations Unlimited. As you could tell, one of the best parts of the way the last couple months went is that my dad still remembered everything, everybody, every moment. I'll tell you a quick story. We had Pastor Birgit call for my dad's sort of last rites, I guess you'd say, on Friday, April 14th. And he said to her, Avita Zane. He knew who it was. And that was special. And then I want to give you a 3-minute excerpt of a conversation Vic and I had on his show, Destination Unlimited, about our family. My dad, Vic, my mom, and my pops. And I'll post the link to the entire show in the podcast description as well. But here's our little conversation. It was a 56-minute long conversation, by the way. But here's a snippet of it from Destinations Unlimited, hosted by Victor, the voice, Furhman, a.k.a. my dad.
My name is Victor Furhman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. They say that in life, if we are open to it, there will always be a second chance. For me, that second chance came in the form of a synchronistic and beautiful love story that started 21 years ago. It was then that a woman, an incoming student to the New Seminary of New York, heard me speak at the graduation and ordination ceremony. She was holding her 6-year-old son, Alexander, and heard me honoring my courageous partner, Judy, who was also graduating and nearing the end of her struggle with metastatic breast cancer. Lori Sue, Alexander's mom, was moved by my words that planted a seed in her heart, a seed that would fruition into family 2 years later. The first part of this new relationship was with Alexander. As Lori Sue would bring him to the new seminary-related functions, he would see me flash this amazing smile and want to hang out with me. My amazing 6-year-old pal was born with so many challenges, yet filled with joy, an outgoing personality, and a spirit that would warm your heart. As life and love would have it, 2 years later, his mom and I began our special journey and were married just before his 13th birthday, bringing me a new partner and a new son, a son of my soul.
My dad does a very good job making sure I eat well. And so thank you for that. But no, so I have that issue, and they did such a great job fixing that, and now it's up to me to self-care it.
That's right. He was born without a real esophagus. They actually had to assemble an esophagus out of 2 pieces, and it is narrow, and once in a while, when you were younger and ate without thinking and swallowed food before chewing it, it would get stuck and you'd have to be hospitalized.
Yes, and that was very traumatic for me. I do remember being on the operating table just minutes away from anesthesia, freaking out. My mother had to come in multiple times to calm me down, and thank God she did. But, those are traumatic experiences. So even as I got older, I still didn't, I guess, understand from those experiences. But now that I'm older, I'm working to not be on that operating table.
You appreciate the circumstances of your mechanics, and you honor them by eating properly.
And chewing my food.
Chewing your food so that you can swallow it and digest it properly. Absolutely. That's great. Now, I remember your mom sharing that some around her at the time of your birth suggested that she institutionalize you, but she would not have that. And along with your dad, John Garrett, worked diligently to bring you along. How does that make you feel?
Well, my parents are my rock. You are my rock as well. And I know that wasn't going to be the choice from them because they believed in me. I think they had a lot of faith in the Lord's power, and they were not going to give up on this. And that's my mother. She doesn't give up on anything. We watched her take care of my grandmother for 11 years. And I saw that as I got older, how her caretaking of my grandmother was basically what she did for me. She didn't give up on her, and she certainly didn't give up on me. So I just think my mother is the strongest woman on this planet, and I love her so much.
And I do too. And I share that belief in her tenacity, her spirit, her indomitable spirit,
Absolutely.
because that's who she is. That really is who she is. And also your pop, John Garrett, also encouraged you by doing a lot of travel activity when you were just an infant.
When I was just an infant, yeah. I mean, he tells me stories of how we would go to places like Oakland when I was months old. We went to New Orleans when I was months old. We went to different places. I remember one time when I was 3 or 4 years old, he brought me to Washington, D.C. to see Newt Gingrich get, sworn in as speaker. So, I mean, he was always out there. He was always traveling, having me travel. And the both of them, in their own ways, said, we're not going to let you just sit at home and do nothing. We're going to have you out. We're going to put you into this world. And, I mean, it started at a very young age. My mom and dad would have me up at St. John the Divine. And then after that at Tom's Restaurant, which is the, exterior for Seinfeld. But they would have me propped up on the table. Like they were just showing me off. And they didn't have to do that, but they wanted to do that. And I don't think, to be honest with you, many parents would be that open to sharing their child in public who has so many needs. Like, because we're living in this world now where everybody has to be a certain way. Everybody has to be this way and that way. And if they're not, we're not going to show them to the world. I don't believe in that. And they didn't either. And thank God I've been surrounded by people who just see me for me.
Wonderful.
And then to cap this Father's Day edition off, I want to play you an excerpt from the Arthur Aidala Power Hour, which will make you misty-eyed as much as it made me misty-eyed when Arthur Aidala, of course the high-profile criminal defense attorney in New York and host of the Arthur Aidala Power Hour on AM 970 The Answer, a show I have the privilege of working on at times. If Matt Sambolino is not in the office, I get to sit behind the board and work with Arthur. But that being said, his father, Padre Louis Aidala, said this message on Friday night, which got me misty-eyed, and maybe you too.
Think about your father and how he provided for you the opportunity to be what you are today, and also, in spite of what other people may think, and this also goes for your mother, while you have them here, every time you see them or go by, leave them, kiss them on both cheeks. You're expressing your respect and your love for them and for what they did to provide for you when you were young. And you know what? When they're not here anymore, you'll be happy that you did so.
All right. No one's going anywhere. Slow down, will you? Because you went to Sicily without me this summer. My parents duped me. They tell me in March that we want to go to Sicily and we can't do it alone. So, Arthur, you come with me. Come with us. So Marianne says, okay, take your parents. I block off the whole last week of July to take my parents to Sicily. I'm all excited. And then they say, no, we found a tour, and we're going to go, and we're taking Nicholas, and you're out.
Gaetano Cipolla, you have to give the man a great deal of credit, the professor, and He has a tour, like he's been doing 28 years. Wonderful. We had all these people ranging from young Nicholas of 19 years of age to the woman, Nancy, 91. And down, she was able to do it, and it inspired me to say I could do it also, because, a lot of walking,
So, of course, yes, I love the gems that our elders provide. And as Padre Lou advised, tell your father on Father's Day how much you love him. And remember to respect and appreciate and cherish all those in your life, all your loved ones in your life at this very moment, while you can. I'm Alex Garrett on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network. Have a blessed Father's Day 2023.